Hello, I'm sharing with you today some of just my coaching expertise that I have acquired. First of all, one area that I have studied is called andragogy. Now, most teachers are familiar with the term pedagogy, which, of course, is the science of teaching students through the strategies that we use, the content knowledge that we have, and just our communication skills and managing students. However, andragogy is actually the science of teaching adults. And we've all been there. We've been at staff development where the person presenting is droning on, has never stopped to interact with the adults to find out what are their needs, what are their desires from this training. And so that's one of the principles of andragogy. If you could look at the Venn diagram, it just gives you some of the differences. But really, the main difference is that you are working as a partner with your adult learners. We need to view the adults that as people who are already self-directed. They pretty much know how to learn, but they don't necessarily have the knowledge fully realized in the area that you're teaching. So it's very important that you respect the time of the adults and their needs and the responsibilities they already have. If teachers come in and it's just one more thing added to their to-do list, it will probably not be a very effective use of their time, and they will not walk away with anything new. And so it's very important as a technology coach to be aware of all those things, and it's very critical to be constantly having them evaluate and giving you feedback and finding out before they even arrive what is it they need, what does they want to know, especially with technology where everyone is on a different place. So, with that, when you look at how to provide good staff development, one thing that a technology coach is going to be armed with is the SAMR model. So, what that means is if you look on the right side, there are four main levels of the SAMR. And it's basically the concept that technology use is varied depending on its use in a task. And it directly impacts and how it directly impacts the learning of your students. So, a lot of teachers who rarely use technology are going to be on that bottom level, the substitution level. Those that are more comfortable with it are probably going to use redefinition. So let me give you an example. Let's say a teacher is reading the book The Circuit, one of my very favorite books by Francisco Jimenez. And in that story, let's say the teacher says, you know what, this is in Central California. Let's all open up our Chromebooks and we're going to go to Google Maps. It would, in a perfect world, be Google Earth. It doesn't always work on a Chromebook. But let's say they're going to Google Earth and let's locate Fresno, one of the locations in the circuit. That would be a substitution activity where they're just finding one location instead of it's substituting the use of possibly an atlas or a map, okay, a paper map. If you move up to augmentation, what you could do instead was, let's say, okay, you know what, we're going to be working in partners, and let's find some pictures on Google Images for all the different places they lived. And we know they lived in San Maria, they lived in Orosi, they lived in all these different places. Let's find some pictures and let's save them to our Google Drive. So we've moved that up now. It's not just the students and the teacher, it's students working collaboratively with each other to find pictures. Then modification is where you're significantly redesigning the task. So instead of just let's find pictures and put it in our drive, instead we're going to create in our groups or partners, we're going to take those pictures and we're going to put them in our Google My Maps, where you can actually insert little pins onto your own map and save your own map in Google Maps. And so you can not only see the locations, but now we've made it an interactive map. So that has modified the whole task completely. Now for redefinition, that means that we're going to create a whole new task that would have been inconceivable had we not have had a computer. And for this task, it might be, you know what, we're going to be creating a website where we're going to invite people to the Central Valley, and we're going to insert our Google map that we created, and we're also going to include some video, and we're going to share it with the class. So we've taken it from just the teacher working with the students as a whole group to the students now are redefining, have a redefined purpose, an activity. So that has gone all the way up. And if you look at the Bloom's taxonomy, we've worked our way up to those different skills. And so with the SAMR model, it's important to be aware that we're going to be going all throughout these different levels. And of course, there's times that substitution makes the most sense, and there's times that redefinition is. But of course, our goal is to move our students up into that transforming type of activity where they take on the learning. It's learner-centric. It's not teacher-centric. So this moves us into the ISTE standards. This is one other thing that I've studied quite a bit. And there are standards for teachers, there are standards for technology coaches, and for administrators, and of course for students. And so you can see here there are several areas that we're focusing on as a student. We want to develop in our students so that, again, that they are, it's not a teacher-centric learning experience when they're at school, but we're equipping them to maneuver the technological landscape to make sure that the learning is student-driven. And these were developed by the International Society for Technology and Education. Next, digital citizenship and fair use. Now, this was an area I was not prepared for when I got into my master's program. But the first thing I do with students a lot is talk about netiquette. And I get lessons and videos online, but lessons, some great, a resource for that is Common Sense Media, where it teaches students what is netiquette? How do we act online? Because a lot of times kids take on different personalities online. So we talk a lot about netiquette, and that also usually turns into a discussion about cyberbullying and how do we be safe online? How can we be safe online? What do we post? Being careful what information we post, think before we post, and also asking friends permission before you post those pictures, before we get into a fight. And then when it comes to teachers, it's also important that they know about fair use law, copyright law, when we're creating websites or even when we're just accessing photos at all, knowing where to access photos where it's safe and legal, like in Creative Commons or Pixabay, and just citing your sources, just like we ask our students to. So those are some ideas that teachers need to be very knowledgeable about. And then finally, Google certification. I had the privilege of going to some boot camps the last few summers and receiving my levels 1 and 2 in Google certification. But the next step is to become certified coach. That would mean that I could teach all of the Google suite and teach and prepare other teachers to receive their Google certification with the blessing of Google. So I've already done some staff development at my school site. We've a coworker and I both have been teaching about Google Classroom and how to use Google Forms. We just started out at the very small steps, but even already in 1 year of trainings, and we've only done a couple of trainings, we went from maybe 2 or 3 of us using Google Classroom to, I would say, over 60% of us are using Google Classroom consistently. And so that's just in 1 year. So I'm excited to see what will be happening in the future.